audience know Cajun?
Here's my audience. Hi, my name is Pitre, and I'm a real Raging Cajun from southern Louisiana. We've all heard of Cajun food, and most of us associate it with spicy food. However, real Cajun food is not spicy at all. The cornerstone of real Cajun food is fresh seafood. Oysters are a very popular shellfish used in Cajun cooking, but they're best enjoyed raw. Today, I'll show you how to open raw oysters so that you can enjoy a little bit of this rich food culture. Now, before I show you how to open these oysters, I'm going to first clear up a few misconceptions and explain exactly what a Cajun is. Cajuns are descendants of 17th century settlers who settled the maritime province of Nova Scotia. The colony of Acadia was made up mostly of Catholic French farmers escaping religious persecution. According to Carl Brasseur, a renowned historian on the subject, the French settlers, the Atacapas Indians, and escaped slaves created this unusual, diverse culture. Diversity is very important in understanding the historical significance of what a Cajun is. In Acadia, interracial marriages were very common. Each culture offered something specific that created the Acadian culture and allowed it to thrive at a time when other colonies were struggling to survive. They were predominantly ungoverned because they would not swear allegiance to France and they would not swear allegiance to England. Now, because of this, they were under constant harassment from the militaries. They thrived for 150 years, till eventually they were expelled from the area in 1765 by the English king. This was known as the Acadian Exodus. Naomi Griffiths writes in her book that this is the first government-sponsored genocide in the Americas. Now, 90% of the population was killed during this genocide. The remaining 10% were placed into slave ships and held captive, 7 slave ships, and held captive for months and months while looking for an area to resettle, but no one was willing to take them in. Many were sold in North Carolina and Georgia as slaves. The remaining 3,000 Acadians settled the southern Louisiana area in wetlands that were considered uninhabitable prior to this time. Now, in these wetlands during the winter, very easy to harvest oysters. It was very popular to harvest oysters, and it became a huge part of Cajun cooking. In fact, the fur trappers relied heavily on the raw oysters for their survival through the winter. Now, being that it's a big part of Cajun cooking today, it's still common for people to eat them raw as well. And you can go to South Louisiana and find people on the weekend sitting around enjoying a sack of oysters. It's very common. Now that you know a little bit about what it is to be a Cajun, why oysters are important, I'm going to show you how to open them. The first thing you need is a knife. Not a common kitchen knife, because that is a sure way of getting yourself into the emergency room. You need a dull oyster knife that can be purchased at any hardware store, a glove for safety placed on the hand that you're going to be holding the oyster with. The oyster has a beak on each shell. You have a lower beak and an upper beak. You place the oyster knife in between the beaks into the area that is considered the hinge. You twist the knife, releasing the hinge. Then you pry open the oyster, cut the upper abductor muscle, cut the lower abductor muscle, and enjoy. The culture of food is one of the few remaining aspects of the historical Cajun culture. Now, remember, remember when you open an oyster for the first time, you're probably going to believe that it's a lot of squeeze to get very little juice. And once you develop a palate for these tasty crustaceans, you can probably get it done in 10 seconds or less. Have a nice day. The end. We can cut this out, right? This part of me talking.
Are you going to say